Hi, welcome back to Quarantine Cooking. Today we try to make some Rinderrouladen, a German dish, very traditional, rolled up beef rouladen. You can use a top roast and it looks like this. You have to pound it a little thinner. The idea is to spread mustard on it. This is German spicy mustard in a tube. It looks weird, but it's really good. You can use Dijon mustard or less. Löwensenf is a very common spicy mustard in Germany, but you can use a mild one too. We will cut a couple of carrots, die Karotten oder Möhren. They will be on our rouladen, but also in the gravy. 2 pickles. People who don't like Essiggurken, they don't need to use it, but it gives it a nice little tangy taste. Butter for the gravy and for browning the rouladen. Green peppercorns are not essential, but I like them for the gravy. A little tomato paste, a tomaten mark we call it. It's like concentrated. Hot pepper, scharfe pepper, Schote, paprika, or here little peppers, mushrooms or Pilze. And celery, der Sellerie. Those are not essential, but they make for a better sauce. And an onion, of course. To make the gravy, die Soße, I like to use some beef broth and some Cabernet. So before we get started with the meat, I told you we need to tenderize it a little bit. We use a little mallet to give it like a 1/4 inch maybe. And you can also use a tenderizer and poke it a little bit, but make sure that you don't put too many holes in it. The difference to my German recipe, what would be browning them in a pan and then making the gravy and bring them back into the pan for 2.5 hours in an oven. This is very time consuming. So I want to try something new, and I'm not the first one who has invented this or tried that out. Those Instapots, this is a German Instapot, what also can sous vide. It's really good for sauteing, and it actually brings down the recipe for the rouladen, which could be a little tough, to a tender meat from 2.5 hours to maybe 30 minutes. And that's worth it. So we get to this later, but let's first chop everything up and then we get back and show you how we make the rouladen. Welcome back. So we pounded 4 of those. I mean, I had 4 frozen, so that's, I mean, this is almost big enough for both of us, but they freeze very well when they are done. So the rouladen are relatively thin, like a 1/4 inch. I will prep one and then we can see and go from here. Before I put the bacon on, let me just show you what we have done with the vegetables. These are the essentials pretty much for the gravy. Wein, die Brühe, die Zwiebeln, klein gehackte Karotten, grüner Pfeffer, Sellerie, Butter, Tomatenmark und scharfe Pfefferschote. Now for our rouladen, and it also depends on your taste. There's so many different ones you can in Germany, and it really depends what you like. But we do bacon, so the slab bacon. It's pretty good for it. And that's Schinken in German. Some of the onions thinly sliced. I like mushrooms. These are the peppers, the carrots, and our pickles. And I use paprika regular. Paprika picante is a little smoked, gives it a little taste of grilled. The mustard and some sea salt, any of the sea salt will do, and pepper flakes. That's pretty much it. So let's assemble one. So first we need a knife and we need the mustard. mustard, and that's where that comes in handy with a tube, like toothpaste. But again, like Dijon or yellow mustard, whatever you like, is all good. Next is our bacon. Okay, now let's get a couple toppings. I bring them over. Onions, mushrooms, pickles, peppers, and carrots. Before I put them on, use a little paprika. And again, with the spices, you know better what you like. I use hot spices a lot, and other people, they don't like anything more than black pepper, and that's fine. There's no rule. Little sea salt, little black pepper. Don't get too crazy. And now, the trick is to not overload it too much. Now let's see, this is always a little tricky. So you want to start out with the thick. Some people, if it's white, you bring in the sides. That can help very much with getting it stabilized. And you have to work it a little. There are two ways to do it. Either way with toothpicks or little pokers, or with thread. I just used a couple of those and cut them in the right size. One way is to do it going in two directions. And don't use your finger and poke it. And we don't need this little guy. So this is one of our rouladen. Let me make the other ones and then we carry on. Welcome back. So we rolled our 4 rouladen, Rinderrouladen, and we will brown them a little bit, saute them a little bit in a pan. You can do this directly in a pressure cooker, but I prefer the pan because I want to have everything back in there. And I can show you also in this direction. This is everything what is left, what didn't fit in the rouladen itself. This will be all incorporated in the Instapot and will create a nice gravy. All right, let's see. This should be hot, or almost getting there. This gets hot very quickly. Crowd it too much, so we brown all sides and then everything goes into the Instapot. Welcome back. Our rouladen are nicely browned. You don't want to burn them, you don't want them to fall apart, so be gentle. But now the rouladen go into our sous vide Instapot. Will be a little tricky, but the easiest way is really to open it up and transfer the rouladen first. Switch that off for now. And it's easier to do this in a pan than browning them. You can put it on the saute setting in the Instapot. And I have done this with smaller pieces, but this is a little tricky with those big ones. Okay, everyone is comfortable. Now back to the Instapot. This is one of the really easy part of the cooking. Wine, Ross, carrots, Pfefferschoten, mehr Möhren. Das ist the chili Pfefferschote, chili pepper, very hot. Some more of the pickles and leftover mushrooms. Die Zwiebeln. Es war nur eine Zwiebel. This was only one onion, but you get a lot out of it. And celery, just so you get a little bit of taste. Not necessary, but green peppers, we love them. And our tomato. Good way to clean out your pantry. And this is just sea salt, paprika, tiny bit curry, and pepper. Again, there's no rule, whatever your taste buds tell you. So before I close it, so everything is nice settled in there. So now let's close the lid. Okay, so we set this to 22 minutes on steaming. Make sure your steam release is on seal. And now, in this case, in this pot, when this is done, it will count down. And in 22 minutes, you should have a tender meat, the same like you would do like 2.5 hours, 2 hours in a oven or in a pan. Welcome back. After 22 minutes in the Instapot, I took out the rouladen. They are all nicely steamed through, so they should be tender. I brought in the content of the Instapot into my pan, what we used before with the rouladen, to deglaze a little bit all the nice crunchiness. Okay, we will blend our stock together, our gravy together with an immersion blender. And then we put, that takes only a minute, then we put the rouladen in for a couple minutes. And then this should be good. And with it, we had in another episode made our Spätzle. And these were frozen for a couple days, a week. And you crunch them up with a little butter. And use a little bit of the red cabbage we made also a couple days ago and froze. So this is always a nice little side dish, and I show you when we are plating it. Here's how the end product looks like. We put our rouladen back into our blended gravy and let them sit there a little bit, and they should be good to go. Get a little bit of gravy, of course. That's the whole idea. I didn't chop it too thin, but sometimes it's good to have it a little bit coarse. There is no additional crème fraîche in there or sour cream or anything like that. And this would be one of our German recipes. Rotkohl, Rinderrouladen, Spätzle. Very often potato dumplings and Semmelknödel. And we make the dumplings, the real German dumplings, later when we make maybe some, currywurst. Guten Appetit.